welcome back to the Cora's Quilts YouTube channel. This video is the third and final video in our series talking about the Tri-Rex ruler pair and using it to cut the fabric out that we need for triangle and square blocks and half rectangle triangle blocks. Today's video is just going to focus on the half rectangle triangle blocks. So if you need a refresher on how to cut the pieces we'll be using out today, go ahead and click on the link in the upper right hand corner that will take you to the tutorial for how we cut out the fabric. Links to everything that we're talking about or using in this video can be found down in the video description box below, and let's take a look at the half rectangle triangle block. Before we actually get sewing, let's take a quick look at the anatomy of this half rectangle triangle block. It's a rectangular block assembled from two triangles, and traditionally we would get these triangles from a rectangle that we cut in half diagonally. And this block is a very close cousin of the half square triangle block, which we all know and love. But the rectangular version is a bit trickier to assemble. And that's because in order to get your correct finish size, when you go to sew your two triangles right sides together, you have to overlap the tips by just the right amount. And it's a really hard thing to eyeball. If you overlap the tips too far, you end up with a block that's going to be too short and fat, or if you don't overlap them enough, you're going to end up with a block that is too long and too skinny. So it's just a really difficult thing to get just right if you were working with just triangles. Now, one way around this would be to piece a larger half rectangle triangle unit than you need, piece it together not really worrying about the edges lining up, and then just trim it down to the size that you need for your quilt top. And it's definitely a doable workaround, but that's still a lot of excess time and effort spent trimming. You could also take the time to paper piece these units, and I do have a link here if you're a paper piecer to some free half rectangle triangle templates on my website, and this method will absolutely give you perfectly pieced blocks, but it's still a lot of excess time spent trimming and peeling the foundation papers away. So for me, I prefer using the Tri-Rex rulers to cut my triangles for these types of blocks because that Rex ruler has that tiny little guide notch. And I'm going to show you in a second why taking the extra time to cut that little notch is worth every extra second spent, because this notch is what's going to help us line our blocks up so we get it exactly the size that we want. So when we go to assemble these blocks, we'll take our two triangles, and when we place them right sides together, you can see that when you line up your stitching line, that little notch is going to line up with the side here of my green background square while my two sewing edges are perfectly aligned. So I'm going to take the time to put a pin in here so it doesn't shift around when I'm sewing. And when I flip my triangle over, you can see the green triangle now on top. Its little notch is perfectly aligned with the side of my blue background triangle while my stitching edges are perfectly aligned as well. So I'm going to flip it back over, make sure it's lined up. Take a moment to pin so it doesn't shift while I'm sewing, and then I'll go to my machine and stitch along my stitching edge. Once you've sewn your seams, you'll press your blocks so that the seam goes to one side or the other, depending on the instructions in your pattern, and there you go. A perfect half rectangle triangle unit without any of the guesswork, trimming, or papers to peel away. So this wraps up our tutorial for the half rectangle triangle block. I know that they have reputations for being tricky little units, but with the help of that Tri-Rex ruler pair, they really are approachable to put together, and they're a fun element to use in some of your quilting projects. If you've enjoyed this and other Cora's Quilts tutorials, please consider hitting the subscribe button here on your YouTube channel. And for more tips, tricks, and quilting tutorials, you can visit our website at www.corasquilts.com. Links for all of the products we used or talked about here in this video can be found in the video description fields below. And thanks for stopping by. We'll see you soon.